What's good? Cut my bangs. I like it a lot. I did my makeup. I did the wings like really big today. I've been trying to get better at that. Trying to do a little more cunty every day. First things first, I gotta respond to my last comment. Uh, Game Carnival. Bro said he was making levels for a game he plays. That's very cool. Game design's a lot of fun. I'm curious to know what game. I also appreciate your encouragement. Thank you very much. Um, I've been doing better. So yeah. All right. So today we're talking about. I don't know how I'm gonna phrase this, but my journey through queer relationships, or you know, I don't know. I like doing titles like the tragedy, or the blank of blank, or whatever. Look, it's not important. The point is, talking about my relationship experience as I have gone from straight to, every label from cis to trans, that kind of thing. So, I grew up in a household when I was really, really young where straight relationships were super important and they were pushed on me really hard. Like, I always had to be eyeballing a girl, or dating a girl. And I mean, I'm talking like kindergarten, first grade, so it was like fucking instilled in me, psyop style. And I didn't even know about like gay people or like poly relationships or anything like that. I knew nothing. I just knew like boy date girl. And at the time I was a boy, you know, and that sucked. Um Not a lot happened, I mean, I like dated people, but it doesn't really mean shit when you're a kid. And then my first like kind of relationship was like I was in like 6th grade. No, I was in 7th grade. And I was dating this girl who was really cute, but I mean, absolute psychopath, like fucking crazy. And she was really manipulative, and she always wanted to have sex with me, and like I wasn't into that. I was like way too young, and I ended up having to move pretty suddenly, and that's a whole thing. But I just like broke up with her, and I just like moved away like a couple days later. And I didn't date for a while. When I moved to the new town, I didn't date anybody for a while. And I had a couple relationships, like in middle school. Nothing serious, but they were always like really bad, you know what I mean? Classic, That's not the interesting part. I guess high school is where it starts to get interesting, because that's when I started transitioning. So the interesting thing is that I was presenting femme, using she, her pronouns, the whole gambit, dressing femme. I mean, I robbed my mom's closet on the daily, you know what I mean? And, I was very interested in a couple girls. I was in the queer group where I live. Excuse me. It's a pretty small red state, small town. So there's the in group, like the choir, or the choir and theater kids. Pretty standard stuff. But it was like majority cis lesbians who were only like cis for cis. So like I didn't really see anything there. But I was interested in a lot of people once I transitioned, because I was like, oh, I'm finally comfortable with myself. Because every time I would get into a relationship, it was always like this stupid, like you pass a note to each other and stuff, like just dumbass shit. But then once I got like a little bit older, like slightly, it might, spore when your brain grows a little. Um, I started kind of, figuring out how to flirt and stuff. But the problem is I didn't pass that well. And like the people who knew I was trans, understood what was going on. But they still perceived me as like a guy, internally. So like I would date or I would like flirt with cis women, um, but they identified as straight. So you can see there's a little bit of an issue. I got this new flavor. It's a Rainbow Road. It's like a fruity pebbles type shit. I've had it before. It's so good. Anyways, so that was kind of a struggle for a long time, was figuring out what I'm okay with accepting. Do I want to go into a relationship with someone that I really like but perceives me different than how I perceive myself? And that's a huge question that a lot of queer and a lot of trans people have to deal with. Not everyone has the luxury to be out open and proud and everything. And I was pretty fucking like batshit crazy about uh being out. Like I would not stand for shit. It was to the point where my school, every time I wanted to go to the bathroom, I had to get the I don't remember what it's called, but the fucking police officer in the school to escort me to the bathroom because they wanted to make sure I used the male bathroom. And not like I was doing anything, but like I would, like I was just so vocal, and like because a lot of the teachers would be like weird about it. Some of them were really cool, but some of them were really fucking weird. Um, so like certain teachers I would just harass endlessly as much as they would harass me. You know what I mean? That's not really the point. The point is, I was one of the loudest motherfuckers, supporting trans rights and stuff. And eventually, like, I got them to wear down and just be normal about shit. Because there was other trans people in my school. So, like, it was important to me that we were treated as equal. And I know, I would do things differently now as an adult. But as a kid, I was just like, yo, I'm gonna fuck the system. And I guess it kind of worked because eventually trans people were allowed to use whatever bathroom they wanted, and names and pronouns were enacted and stuff because I was so fucking adamant about it. That I basically, like, I went to the principal like multiple times and I was like, hey, you gotta fucking do this, dude. Like, it's insane that you're not. And I mean, this dude was like, he was a motherfucker. But that's not the point. The point is about dating. Dating wise, and one problem that I've had since transitioning is I can never tell when a girl is flirting with me or when they're just being nice. Because with guys, I don't have a lot of experience with guys. Literally, yeah, barely any. We'll get there. But I can never tell when they're flirting and stuff, and I miss so many opportunities with people who would have been amazing for me. This one girl, we hung out every day in class. We hung out, whenever we could see each other. You know what I mean? At lunch, after school, before school, and all this stuff. And like we would hang out all the time. We'd talk. We'd text. And she introduced me to her parents once because her parents were showing up for like an event, and she like really wanted me to meet her parents. I mean, she was so cute, so sweet. I mean, just the nicest girl ever. No red flags, nothing. But I was so timid to assert myself, and that was a huge struggle. So, that passed me by, and she's in a happy relationship now, and I'm glad for her. I don't know the guy she's dating. But like they're really happy. They actually just got married, which is really sick. But this happens so many times to me where I just fucking am blind. And maybe it's because I'm autistic, you know? It's probably that. But it has a lot to do with like being queer and not knowing, am I straight, am I gay, am I bi, am I pan? I don't know. I don't even know to this day. I identify as lesbian because I am certain I like girls. And it's like if the right guy came along, maybe I'd have to like figure that one out, but I don't want to like test it out with people because that's rude, So I don't know. It's just fucking difficult. But you got to get experience. But anyways, I met this girl in chemistry class, and she was really cool. She was very cute. She had this really like kind of like what's the word? I don't know, but she was just very distant. She was very smart. We had a lot of hobbies. We both hunted. We're both into firearms. Very common in my state. I mean, everybody does. It's kind of weird if you don't have a gun. Excuse me, I'm sipping on that cranberry ginger ale. And she was cool, but she didn't really like flirt. We just kind of, you just kind of like slowly go like that. But there was this other girl who was like very alt, dyed hair and, like all the clothes and all that shit. The other girl was just like hoodie, leggings, nothing crazy. But this other girl showed so much fucking attention for me. And I was like, this is the first lesbian, like openly out lesbian who has showed interest in me. And I was like, yo! And I was so fucking depressed at the time that like I just needed to, see what was going on there. I don't know. You get it if you get it. If you don't, you don't. That's alright. But I was just like, I haven't had a relationship in like fucking 5 years. And like, this girl's cute. We're chill. And so we start talking every fucking day. And, I actually found out she would watch me walk home every day because she got picked up by her parents. She would watch me walk home. And she did that for like 6 months. And anyway, so the pitfall I fell into is I wasn't choosing partners based on compatibility, how much I enjoyed their company, how healthy they were mentally, and, stuff like that, like the important things. There's a lot more. I'm very rigorous now. But you get my point where it's just like, are they fucking normal in the head? Are they, whatever? And like, so I started dating, she posted online, like on her Instagram story, like, man, I wish I had a girlfriend and stuff, and blah, 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 blah. And I was hanging out with my homeboy at the time, and he was like, yo, man, just like fucking go for it. What's the worst that can happen? And I was like, you're right. So I sent a message, and she was, the post was like, yo, I want a girlfriend. I was like, yo, I got you. Something stupid like that, And she didn't, like, get it at first. Like, she didn't understand that I was, like, flirting, propositioning, however you want to phrase it, and, she was talking to the other girl that I liked. I liked two of them at the same time, and so they were talking, and then so the other girl was like, you're, dude, she's flirting. And I was, yeah, okay. So we had this day where the three of us hung out. This is the first time hanging out outside of school. I go across town, show up, and they're playing Minecraft, but they're in the basement, so they like didn't hear me knock. And I didn't have Wi-Fi, or I couldn't text for some reason. So like I had to like ride down the street, like a couple blocks to the public library so I could get Wi-Fi. God knows why I didn't have cell service. And I was like, yo, what the fuck, dog, let me in. And then they were like, and they didn't respond. So I just went back to the house and fucking pounded on the door. So the other girl, not the girl I was like ended up dating, she opens the door, she leads me downstairs. They were playing Minecraft. And I was like, sick, I love Minecraft. I thought that, we were just chilling. They had different plans. So we go into the girl's room. I really need to. I don't want to like dox anybody, you get it. But it's like, it's really hard being like, they're both girls and just calling them girl. So we were at the girl's house who I ended up dating with the other girl that I had a crush on. And I initially didn't have a crush on the girl I ended up dating. So, but here's the thing. So we're in her room watching a movie on her laptop. I'm in the middle of the bed. It's like a queen, and I'm holding them like this, like we're all laying down, and they're like in both of my arms. And what the other girl like fucking crawled to the end of the bed and just fell asleep. And so like, and then, we finished the movie and she like woke up and she was like, oh fuck, I gotta go home. And then we never heard from her again. My theory is that she had a crush on both of us, or at least me, and then just kind of like got her heart broken when she like saw that we were still cuddling. And like, it didn't mean anything to me. Like, I didn't think it was like a romantic thing. Again, I'm probably like aromantic or asexual or some shit. I don't know. And autistic or some shit. But we never fucking heard from her again. And I'm like, damn, that's crazy. I ended up dating the girl. Motherfucker. Oh, hi. Is it time to feed you? What time is it? No, you still got an hour. You got an hour. You got an hour. That's my little chihuahua. She's a long-haired chihuahua. She's old. Her name's Layla. She's very cute. And, the thing is that I hadn't experienced a relationship where the person liked me, which is really funny. And this person who I ended up dating was obsessed with me. And I was, like, interested because I had never experienced that before. And so, it was our senior year of high school. And, we had like 2 months left. I ended up moving in because my home situation was fucked beyond belief. But the problem is, the moment I moved in, everything changed. Where's she barking at? Squirrel? Yeah, whatever. Everything changed. And I broke ties with my mom, who I was living with before I moved. I broke ties with my longtime best friend who, we gotta talk about him eventually. He's a part of this. I broke ties with everybody, and I should have listened to your homies when they say, yo, bitch is bad, and not like bad, like, yeah, like, no, when they're like, yo, she's a freak, she's psycho. Like, listen to your homies, dude. I ended up spending 5 years in that relationship. He ended up leaving me for 2 other guys. Oh, he transitioned in the middle of that. He was like non-binary trans masc in like middle school, detransitioned, and then I was just randomly one day like, yo, what was that about, dog? And then he started transitioning. And then he got really fucking mean and cold, and it was shit, and he put me through unbelievable stuff. I mean, truly heinous things. I could do a couple videos, or one really long one about all of the stuff that went on in that relationship. It was insane, and truly depraved human behavior. And so the last like 6 months of the relationship, he's like, hey, I want to like go poly. I want to open the relationship up. And I was kind of like, okay. And at this point, we just kind of like quietly hated each other. We just like, I made dinner and I'd bring it into his room because we were in separate rooms. And then he would just be on the computer, you know, and I would just like give him his fucking dinner and he wouldn't even look at me, you know, and I just go back to my room. And I was doing a lot of drugs, like smoking hella weed, like an ounce of weed a week, drinking beer, you know, like a lot, because I was so fucked up from how bad the situation got. It was miserable, you know, but I didn't have anywhere to go. I was financially dependent because I was like in a wheelchair. You know, I was like so disabled. I'm also schizophrenic and I wasn't medicated at the time, so I was going fucking insane. And I was also smoking hella weed. So I was like fully detached from reality, like at all times, you know. And I never left the house. Everything just fucking was miserable. My whole point to explaining all this is the slippery slope that not having respect for yourself gets. If you're a queer person or trans, you know, you gotta understand that you're hot shit, you're valuable, you know, you're cool. Don't sink to someone else's level just because they throw a little attention your way or you think they look cute. You know what I mean? Like they're so superficial and none of that matters, you know. Like if you grow old, they're gonna look different. They're probably not gonna be as pretty as when you met them. You know what I mean? And to be loved is to be changed, but it also, you know, can be scary because you change and sometimes you go different ways, and that's okay. But it's important to pick people that are gonna go the distance, not just like some, you know, hookup situation. That's different. I'm talking about like dating. I was so fucking locked in. I was like, I was only dating to marry for whatever reason. I don't know why I was so serious. But nobody else plays the game like me, you know, and I've gotten softer about that over time. I'm less intense. But when I was in high school, I was looking to log down someone, you know. Weird phrasing. I didn't mean it like that. So, the other end of the spectrum, this guy I met when I moved here, he was my grandparents and his grandparents were friends because they lived 3 doors down from each other. And we met like right as his grandma died. My grandpa died like a couple months before. You know what I mean? And so we hung out a lot because he would visit from his dad's. His parents were divorced. So he would come and visit his mom on the weekends and I would hang out with him because, dude, we're like, our families are friends, you know? And at first I was like, this dude's insufferable because he was like kind of a goofball. And I was like, so like, I need to be dark and brooding. And, you know, I like, when I met him, I had like a trigger warning, self harm. Okay, I'll put my hands down when I stop talking about self harm. I had like massive cuts on my arm because I like attempted suicide, and you know, he was like really concerned about the, you know, he was like, "What the fuck, dog?" You know, and it really worried him because like I was going through stuff, and I was like, "Oh, hands up again, content warning, suicide." Why am I doing this? No, I don't give a shit. Anyways, I was like attempting suicide and stuff, and like I was dabbling with drugs. You know, I got arrested at school for MIP and theft. You know, like I was kind of going through it, and this guy was so sweet and innocent, and I was disgusted because I was like, he's beneath me, and we still hung out for years. I mean, for like, let's see, we hung out for 5 years. Um, and I ended up falling in love with him. I mean, like, truly. And he identifies as straight. He's a cis straight guy. But I couldn't help myself. You know what I mean? Um, and it breaks my heart because before I moved out and abandoned him and everyone else in my life, things were going really good. Um, I remember like one time I went over to his house. It was like late at night, it was dark, and I went over and I was like unpacking my bag and stuff, like magic cards, vape, whatever. And I just turned to him and I'm like, "Hey man, I love you." And he just stopped for a second. He was like, and then he said, "I love you too." And that was such a raw moment for me because I usually am very closed off and very touchy about that kind of stuff, but like I meant it. And like we had been through everything together for years. We grew up together. We were like as best friends as friends could be. And we said, we were gonna move in together. We planned out our jobs, all the stuff we wanted to do, all the trips we wanted to take. We hugged. He wanted me to sleep in his bed with him, and I don't think he meant it in a gay way. But like, he just wanted like me to be closer because I would always leave in the middle of the night after he fell asleep because I couldn't handle my feelings. Yo, also, if his younger brother is watching, which I think he is, you can't tell a soul about this, okay? This is my YouTube channel. You're just a viewer. And I know because he's family too. He's an OG. He's sick. I love that, man. I hope you're doing good, man. I hope you're doing good. I heard you got like an apartment. That's sick, dude. You're doing better than me. Fuck. Dude, I hope you're doing good. Hit me up, Hit me up. Um but yeah, like things were going really good. We said we'd marry each other if we weren't dating anyone at 25. And that's coming up pretty quick. It's coming up pretty quick. And that's crazy to think about cuz I didn't think I would get there. That felt like a joke. You know what I mean? But I mean, we texted each other constantly. We would video chat all the time when he was at his other house. We would get on Instagram live chat or like the video call, and we would play Magic the Gathering together because we loved Magic. And we, oh god, we did everything together. And it crushes my soul that tried I never talked to him about it. You know what I mean? Um, because now things are different. Like I'm gonna be hanging out with him today, but things are different. He had 5 years where I wasn't in his life. I basically died, and he had to mourn the loss and move on and learn to live without me, and I had to learn to live without him, and that was terrifying. But we had to do it because I was too much of a fucking coward to stand up for myself and have any self-worth. And that's the sad thing. That's the tragedy that comes with this territory. So you have to be strong. It's so sad. It's the saddest fucking thing when your dreams come true and you have to numb yourself to that. Because I got the girl who ended up being a guy, not a problem, but you get my point. I got the guy that I wanted in theory, and it was the most miserable thing. It was the worst decision of my life. I regret it so much. Um, but things are never going to be the same, and I have to move on. I have to let go. It just breaks my fucking heart. Because the thing is that I was scared if I were to ask him if he wanted to do something more than friends, that I would lose that friendship. And what I didn't realize at the time is that if we really were good enough friends, that wouldn't have stopped the friendship. We were unbreakable at the time. I mean, there is no one else in my life who I've ever felt that way about. And I don't know if I can ever tell him how I feel. I think it's over. But I don't know if I'm ever going to find someone like him again. Maybe I will, but I don't know. I think that's about it for today. I know this one was kind of a weird one, kind of a downer, but I thought it was interesting to share my experience because I wish I got to hear all this when I was younger because I would have made a lot different decisions. I would have been a lot more confident, a lot more assertive. You know what I mean? You got to play ball if you want to hit that home run, brother. You ain't going to get that way by, bunting. You got to fucking swing, and sometimes you miss. That's all right, but take the fucking chance. You only got one life.